I'm going to apply this to a healthcare problem. This happened with me about a dozen years ago. I was working with a healthcare company that had 75 hospitals up and down the Midwest, small rural hospitals. And one day I called the head of human resources, who I was working with, and his assistant answered the phone. I said, could I talk with so-and-so? And she said, no. Okay, could you take a message and have him call me? And she said, no. I'm going, something's wrong here. Help me with this. What's wrong? And she said, hold on for a minute. So she puts me on hold, and then she comes back and says, he died. I'm going, that's horrible. I'm sad to hear that. Well, when things are worked out, have someone give me a call. And she said, fine, but it could be a while. I said, okay. The next day, I get a call. And I get a call from their chief legal counsel, their head attorney for the whole firm. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, right? And she says, we're not going to be replacing the head of HR for a while. Maybe not for a year. I'm going to step in and be head of HR. Now, have you ever heard of the chief legal counsel stepping in and being head of HR? I'd never heard of that. So I asked her, why are you doing this? What's going on? And she said, well, I've been trying to handle this through HR for the last year, and I've never been able to do it. As chief legal counsel, I sit in the back of law courts, right? Courts of law, and I hear our organization under attack. And sometimes it makes me nervous as all get out, because I've come to believe that in each of our 75 small rural hospitals, we've got a physician or maybe a couple who are over the hill and should have retired and haven't. And so before we bring in a head of HR, I'm going to have some of what you folks call crucial conversations. Now, what's the bottom line result this lawyer cares about? What does she care about? She cares about the company and its liability, and she cares about the patients, right? She doesn't want people being harmed by physicians who are no longer practicing in a safe way, right? Do you agree with what she cares about? Makes sense? And so the conversation she needs to have, this could be a risky conversation, right? High stakes. If this conversation goes wrong, if she's in there with a physician in a small town, what's the worst that could happen? She's denying him privileges or firing her. We could see lawsuits, we could see newspaper articles, we could see all kinds of lousy stuff, right? So I start talking to her about how are you going to do these crucial conversations, and she'd been in on some of this sort of training. And I want to share kind of how she handled it. She said, you know, when I was a little girl and I was growing up, my dad was a physician in a small town. And he always told us he'd retire when he was 55, but he didn't. He didn't retire till he was 70. So, you know, it wasn't that he didn't want to retire, it's that he couldn't. What might make it hard for a small town physician to retire, even if they want to? There's no one to take their place, right? And who are they taking care of? Their friends, other elderly people. They may have known them since they were kids in school, right? So she said, you know, I think we have made more mutual purpose in the room than you might realize. So to demonstrate mutual purpose, she came in with a tool from corporate. She'd sit down with a physician, she'd say, at corporate, we're putting together a program where we would bring in 3 or 4 young physicians for you to interview, and if you find the right match, we would finance this young physician to buy your practice, and then you'd retire. You want to join this? And she said, virtually all of them said, sign me up, right? That quickly they found mutual purpose. Now, how do you respect someone who's committing malpractice against their patients? Is there anything to respect about these physicians? There is, isn't there? Respect is like a glass half full or glass half empty. We can always find something to disrespect about anybody. And if we look hard, we can find something to respect. In this case, she said, well, I have immeasurable respect for what they've done for the town for years and for what they're trying to do to help their neighbors now. So she, again, had a tool from corporate to demonstrate that respect. It was a check for $500. Written in the physician's name to the charity of their choice in the community, in honor of their years of service to the community. And she said fully half the physicians pulled out their checkbook and wrote a matching check on the spot. Some of the families got together and raised as much as $20,000 in the physician's name to donate to the community for like part of a new pool or something. Do you think those physicians felt respected? Yeah. Now the content of the conversation was still difficult, right? She had a timetable. They needed to stop practicing within 6 months. And she said sometimes there were tears. But the conversations went well because the physicians felt respected and they felt there was mutual purpose. See the power these skills have?